Hey everyone, it's Jaquie and I am back to talk to you today about the steps you need to take to request an evaluation for special education services for your child. So once you made the decision to have your child evaluated, you'll need to get the process rolling. And so it starts with a formal request letter from you. And the process is fairly simple, even though it is formal. And so there are some steps that you can take ahead of time to get prepared. First of all, find out where to send your request. Ask your child's teacher who to address your request for an educational evaluation to. If they don't know, ask the principal or your school special education director. Number two, you're going to write a formal letter. And so I have some sample letters that I can send if that is the step of the process that you're on, to give you a model to follow. And you can modify it based on your concerns and the observations of your child, but it does provide a template for you to get started. Number three, be specific about why you're requesting the evaluation. Write as much as you need to about your concerns, and don't be afraid to say things like, I'm requesting my child be evaluated to see if they have dyslexia. And I briefly went over what dyslexia is and our 13 conditions covered under ideas. So make sure you check out that video if you're curious about the conditions that are covered by the legislation that governs special education services. Number four, consent to your child being evaluated. So say explicitly in your letter that you are giving consent for your child to be evaluated, and request a consent to evaluate form to sign. So even once you've presented this letter, that is still not the official form that the school will need on record in order to proceed with testing. So once you've submitted that letter and you receive the form that gives the consent to evaluate, make sure that you sign it and return it promptly to the school. Okay. Number five, make sure that that letter arrives. You can hand deliver it. You can send it through certified mail. And make sure that if you choose to send the request through certified mail, that you get a return receipt. Just so you know that it gets there, and just so you also keep record of the receipt of when you send it so that you have track of when that letter was officially placed in the mail. If you hand deliver the letter, ask for a date stamped signed copy of your records. Okay. 6, follow up. After 5 days, if you haven't heard anything, check in with the school, and you can do this by phone. But you could also send an email or letter to confirm the next steps that were agreed upon in that phone conversation. So if you are able to reach somebody by phone, make sure that you're following up with them to say, hey, per our conversation, you will send me the necessary paperwork so that I can consent to the evaluation of my child, or per our conversation, just make sure that you send a summary email following the conversation that you have with the representative at your child's school. All right, so those are the steps to requesting a school evaluation. Now, the steps for requesting a private evaluation are slightly different. And so once you've decided to get your child a private evaluation done for learning and attention issues, the question becomes, how do you make it happen? And so 7 steps for this. Number 1, gather some specifics. So take notes about what you're seeing, collect some of your child's work samples and report cards. You will need to go in with paperwork in hand to a private evaluation, because unlike the school, they don't have automatic access to your child's work and your child's records. And so these are things that you will have to gather. The more specific you can be about your concerns, the easier it will be to find the right professional to evaluate your child for different types of learning and attention issues. Number 2, have a conversation with your child's doctor. Share your observations. You may want to discuss your concerns when your child is not with you, because at that point you're still kind of learning how to express what's happening with your child. And so you want to make sure that throughout this process, the self-esteem of your child remains as intact as possible. Through your doctor, you could ask for a referral to an appropriate specialist who could then diagnose or rule out the issues that you're wondering about. Number 3, ask around for recommendations. If you have access to a community of parents, talk to them. Contact organizations like CEAM, if you're in Missouri, CEAM, and other organizations that could be referred to you through your school, to find out who the specialists are in your area. All right. Number 4, look for ways to reduce the cost. Keep in mind that a school is not obligated to pay for a private evaluation for you. And so there's a possibility that you could be coming out of pocket for it. So I will be going over the pros and cons of private evaluations, but one of the biggest downsides is the fact that it can be expensive. Although there are resources in the state of Missouri, St. Louis specifically, that offer discounted or free testing to families that qualify. So ask local teaching hospitals or universities about a sliding fee scale for families who can't afford the full cost of an evaluation. And you also might want to ask about research studies that are around, probably through hospitals and universities, that could include free evaluations. All right. Number 5, contact your insurance company. If you have insurance, find out what your policy will cover. Some types of evaluations may not be covered, and it's important to know how much you'll have to come out of pocket in the event that you end up having to pay. So ask how much more it will cost to go to a specialist who's outside of your insurance company's network, if that's what it comes to. If there's a specialist that you need that might not be included in your insurance company's network. Number 6, talk to the evaluator. Before you send your child to be tested via private evaluation, call the specialist and ask questions. Find out about practical matters like how long the waiting list is for new patients. Is it also important to find a specialist important to find a specialist whose personality is a good fit for your child, because the more effort your child is willing to put into the evaluation, the more accurate the results will be. All right. Lastly, number 7, speak with your child's school. School evaluations and private evaluations may differ, and by law, a school must consider an outside evaluation, but it isn't obligated to follow the recommendations. And so you may want to talk to the school about what would be most useful to include in the evaluation report to help support the development of your child's IEP or 504 plan. All right, hope this helps.